This video will teach about general proportions of facial features and other best practices to consider when drawing a portrait with value. I'll break down each feature into their component shapes and relative position on the face. As a general disclaimer, these described proportions and shapes are averages, not absolute rules. Make sure to observe the specific proportions of your portrait sitter to ensure accurate representation. We'll start with the shape of the head, which is generally a tall oval. The top of that oval, the cranium, is usually wider than the bottom at the chin. Try to see through the hair at first so it doesn't confuse where the facial features are positioned in relation to the skull. We'll put the hair in later. The eyes sit more or less exactly at the halfway point between the top of the skull and the chin. You can lightly draw a line through the center of the head to reinforce placement and symmetry, and you can do the same with the left and right halves of the face. The width of each eye should be about 1/5 the width of the face. This means that there should be room for an extra set of eyes on either side of the face, as well as one in between. The shape of the eyelids is a pinched oval, like a football, with a tear duct on the side facing the nose. Some eyes have creases above and below the lids. The iris is the part of the eye that has color, and within the iris is a smaller circle of the pupil. The pupil changes size due to light conditions, and the position of the iris and pupil changes depending on where the sitter is looking. The eyelashes look like a dark mass above and below each eye. It's important to understand that the eye is a sphere because of how it sits on the face. The shadows under and above the eyelids show the depth of that sphere. The eyebrows also run along the top of that sphere as it is intersected by the brow ridge. From the halfway point of the eyes, the lower face can be generally broken into thirds, which defines the position of the nose, lips, and chin. The shape of the nose is essentially an upturned triangle with receding planes on either side. At the bottom is a sphere that merges into the septum and two spherical nostrils on either side. The nose's planes that recede toward the cheeks are usually in shadow. The nostrils connect into the septum, and the underside of these features are usually in shadow too. The opening to the nostrils are the darkest part of the nose. Under the nose is often a cast shadow, and there are usually light shadows around the creases of the nostrils too. Under the nose sits the mouth. The crease of the mouth is the darkest part of this feature and usually spreads the distance between the center of each eye. The top and bottom lip are generally equal in height, but the bottom lip extends for longer at that thickness, while the top lip has a more narrow incline to the corners of the mouth. Some lips have a cleft that extends upward to the septum. In terms of value, the top lip is usually darker than the bottom. The bottom lip has shadow as it emerges from the mouth's opening, and it also casts a shadow below. The ears stick out from the side of the head, starting about parallel to the eyes and ending about parallel to the mouth. Seen from the front, the ear has a ring of cartilage around the exterior and a recessed cavity closer to the face. The face tends to have more shadow as it recedes toward the ears. There may also be deeper shadows on the bottom half of the face below the cheekbones. The neck should be nearly as wide as the jawline. It is a cylinder with two sloping lines that lead outward to the shoulders. Since the head sits on top of the neck, there is usually a deep cast shadow below. As the neck slopes to the shoulders, there should be enough room for an additional head on either side. A loose-fitting t-shirt collar usually sits along the collarbone and then wraps around the neck. Hair shape and texture vary widely sitter to sitter. One important rule is to leave room for the forehead between the eyes and the hairline. Many people's hairlines have a pattern that is lowest in the center, recedes slightly as it travels outwards, and then loops back in on the sides of the face. It's helpful to think about hair as a shape or a mass that sits on the head rather than the individual strands of hair that compose that shape. Even closely cropped hairstyles add depth to the sides and top of the head. With longer hairstyles, this depth tends to be greater in both dimensions. Once you've drawn the initial shape of the hair, you can use marks and value to show the hair's texture and how it sits across the contours of the sitter's head. The deepest shadows of longer hair are usually where you see it wrapping behind the sitter's neck, and where hair overlaps the face, it will cast a shadow below.